What's up, guys? Let's talk about it. Why is Diablo 4 so incredibly bad with itemization? So this is something that I've been wanting to talk about for a really long time, and I'm actually really trying to reach out as a Diablo partner, and some things are kind of moving along, and I can't reveal too much information because I can't just like share the information that we have in the partner group, although I'd love to share, my ideas with you guys that I'm also applying and trying to get moving forward, specifically talking about itemizations and unique items. But overall, the itemization I think really needs to be looked at in this game. This is something that's been mentioned, time and time again. This is a long time ago. You can see this post over here, but another post blew up recently that was posted over on Reddit talking about that we really need another itemization 2.0 ASAP, and really comes down to this post right here. This kind of explains things a lot, but it's just basically saying that, like, at the end of the day, we have a lot of worthless stats. Let's go and look at why itemization right now is so terrible in the game. In terms of a min-max or someone that's really played action RPGs, there are so many just stats that are just X condition damage, and they all do basically the same thing. So what we're seeing right here, Diablo 4 stats, we have the vulnerable, crit, hit chance, and we got the crit damage, and then we've got all the stats, right? And well, some of these are really cool, and they do add some, basically raw numbers to the game. They're a little bit less interesting than I would have liked to see from a game that I view as this is the biggest action RPG. It's supposed to be one of the top selling games in terms of the action RPG. This is the pinnacle of a lot of people's action RPG experience. It's Diablo. When you ask a lot of people what are the top action RPGs, they will always mention Diablo because it's very iconic. But looking at Diablo 2, it's just superior in so many ways in terms of itemization and the crafting, the way that you acquire some of these items. And I think that it comes down to a lot of things. So here's my personal takes on it in terms of what really should be addressed. But going over this is an important piece right here. So you have all these stats over here that they're relatively decent, and they should all pretty much be in most action RPGs. And I think this is like a good base. But then there's all this additive damage where it's like damage versus burning, bleeding, crowd controlled, chilled, close, dazed, distance, elites, like it's all the same thing. It's just a damage, but at X condition. Now, the weird thing is that you can have counterintuitive ones, like you can get an item that rolls damage to distance and damage to close. Like, it needs to be kind of unified, right? And there's so many of these other conditions, and then there's like in this category of even more BS, there's just crit strike damage, but on X condition. Why not add, like, it's the same thing that I've been complaining about, and some of you guys always find it funny when I say this, but I'm always like, why does this game have unlucky hit on a chance to do this on a crit on a Tuesday at your sister's house while she's eating frozen pizza? Like, it has to be all these conditions, and like, I just don't get why that the game is designed around, oh, you only have like a 2% chance, or it's 3% chance actually for overpower, but like, you can't increase that, but you can get overpowered damage on rogue. Why is this like a thing that exists in an action RPG? You want to know what's really interesting? And there is some stuff that's interesting in Diablo 4. So I want to give him some credit, and I'll be honest, okay? I'm not trying to be mean or complain for like the sake of just, just being mean. I want this game to be better. The whole point of this video is basically to make the game better and to also give you guys my thoughts and kind of what I'm trying to be pushing in that Diablo partner group, okay? So what I've been trying to say is the uniques specifically need to actually feel unique. They can't just roll with some like random thing that doesn't even affect the gameplay. They need something that makes it exciting, right? But at the end of the day, these stats over here on the left are actually pretty good bases, but what we need is more interesting stuff. And they say they want to make the game more interesting. You know what would be really interesting is to get stats that can have powers from other classes. Remember how in Diablo 2, you could have a sorceress that can turn into a werebear, you could have a barbarian that can transform into like a druid wolf. There was skills from other classes that could be implemented on other classes. So you imagine having the ability to imbue your powers with double elements on your sorceress like you can with the rogue, right? Adding all these things, because some people only play one class anyways, right? So they're never going to experience all of these things, especially because it takes so dang long to level right now in the game, even though they are trying to, make leveling a little bit better. But they need to have these be a little bit more interesting. And I was thinking about like just in general, this is just another post on itemization. There's tons of them, but this one kind of blew up more recently. And they're saying that like looking at items and not having like a loot filter, like I totally get that. The loot filter should exist. It's a game in 2023. We need a loot filter and the ability to search for your items in the stash. Like this should have came out when the game came out, right? But at the end of the day, there is a foundation here that exists that I think still has a lot more to go in terms of like its road path. And I always look at the original. This is, if you're wondering what this is like the original idea in terms of the itemization is you're supposed to go to normal, magic, rare. But in terms of itemization, like if you go to D2, and I know I always talk about D2, but like it's so good and it's still far ahead of Diablo 4 in terms of like what it did at its time. Normal items, you could socket them as long as, you know, you could have some sort of rune words and stuff. There was a point to them, right? Magic items, you can get +3 to, let's say, a cold skills on a sorceress. That was like the best in slot for certain builds, right? And then you also have rare items that could be good. Then you had like your unique items that could be good, right? There were so many, like, you know, viable options for every single one of these items to exist. But in Diablo 4, what is the point in a World Tier 4 to get a normal or magic item? It's completely pointless. What is the point of a sacred item in World Tier 4? I don't know. They have no point in the game. If it's a legendary sacred, sure, you can extract the power. And I want to give them credit. I think that whole thing is cool. And obviously we don't have set items yet. This is something that people want like in the future. And like, well, we'll probably get set items later. I just think in terms of its progression, the worst part of Diablo 4 is like, while I'm playing in a progression, like from like a brand new season perspective, why am I getting all of these trash items until I get to World Tier 4? If you look at Diablo 2 or Path of Exile or a lot of other action RPGs, you can get like a really good item that's like, you know, item level 30 or like whatever. There are really good items that you can get in the earlier stages of the game that will be best in slot. Why do I have to wait until World Tier 4 to get a GG item? Why can't the GG item just drop early? And I'm not saying it has to be GG as in like it's an item that has so much damage, just something sort of niche and it's like, oh, that's pretty good. It's got like good resistances, or like, oh, this gives me a lot of movement speed earlier on, right? Just some way to make some of these uniques so much better. And they want to make the uniques better. And I was super excited when I heard that they were going to make these better. And honestly, I ended up just complaining about it for like 10, 20 minutes when I was like doing my review of the new live patch that was supposed to make this game epic. And I was going to get super excited to play with these uniques. I was looking at the rogue uniques like, what are these changes? Like, do you think people are going to be running Windforce? Do you think people are going to be running the Word of Hakan? And I think that this is something that really needs to be addressed. Whoever's making these, I want you to use this. Like, use this in a gameplay and tell me that it's like equal or like at least, you know, maybe an 8 out of 10 compared to like an actual item, because it is far from it, right? If we take it like the Word of Hakan, right? This is the update, and I was like really excited that we're getting an update to this, and I'm like, okay, well, what are they doing? Ultimate damage affix replaced with cooldown reduction. You want to know what Word of Hakan does? All right, so Word of Hakan is like, you get physical damage. Your ultimate is now changed to cooldown. That's good, okay? But like non-physical damage is like whatever on a rogue, right? And then you have crit strike damage, which is with imbued skill. So it's like, oh, it's conditioned. It's like crit strike damage, but X condition. And then you have ranks of all imbuements, which is like, yeah, you can roll that on a regular amulet, right? And then like, especially if you get a +1, you can't reroll anything because it's unique anyways. And then a rain of arrows gets imbued with everything, so it can apply these conditions, right? It's still a really bad item because you're losing it out on that legendary aspect that gets a bonus of 50% on your amulet, right? It's like, you don't understand what the game has designed these aspects. If you could put an aspect on these, maybe it would be not that bad, but at the end of the day, there are so many better options. You're losing out on your movement speed. You're losing out on resource cost reduction. You're missing out on another like source of cooldown reduction. You can get cooldown reduction and you get trap cooldown reduction or imbuement cooldown reduction all on your amulet. And why would I sacrifice like that for the rain of arrows is always imbued? Like if it said your rain of arrows would reset on an elite kill, or if it said your rain of arrows had no cooldown, then we have a unique. Then we have a cool item that has some sort of like, oh man, he could always spam his rain of arrows. Or maybe, I don't know, something that makes this unique in the sense where like your rain of arrows, now after it fires down, it shoots back up and then it does like more damage. That way, it at least adds something unique to the game where it would have to do a massive amount of damage. Basically, if it hit twice, or it would really have to do a lot more than it currently does in terms of this amulet. It's still nowhere near, like, look at the Eyes of the Dark when they buffed this. They changed it used to be like, I think like 30% negative cooldown. Now it's like, okay, well, we lowered that. No, who's playing with Eyes in the Dark? Yeah, it has this niche playstyle where like maybe if you're going super high in the Nightmare dungeons and you're just gonna like throw these down and you have like a 2-hour, you know, dungeon run just to, you know, show your mom that you did it and you completed a sigil 100 by cheesing it with Eyes of the Dark. Like these items, with the exception of Condemnation on the Rogue, like no one uses these. They're just not really viable for most builds, right? And I've been talking about this and talking about fixing the uniques, and I still think they need a massive rework. And I'm also thinking about like the itemization in terms of the acquisition. How does an item actually become like a GG item? Okay, so it rolls to have 3 really good stats that are relatively high, and then I just re-roll one. It doesn't feel very interesting. It doesn't feel like, man, I built this. And I really want to say that they should do something with this itemization. I think one thing that would be really cool is maybe if you kill the world boss, you can reroll the stat of something else on the item, just like you can reroll one over here, and then you can reroll something else once you kill the world boss as like an extra like roll. Not just like the same one that you get here, you can reroll a separate stat on the item that normally like you wouldn't be able to like roll because you already rolled one thing. This is the exact same enchantment system on Diablo 3. Diablo 3 didn't really have crafting. I mean, they kind of had this thing where like, you know, you can farm the bounty materials, then you can kind of craft. That was at least something that you can kind of work towards, and I think that Diablo 3 might be just a little bit better in terms of the crafting system. This is a brand new modern action RPG. How come we don't have crazy crafting systems? And then I was thinking, well, what was D2's, right? And on top of that, what makes the player really stick with the item and make them really excited? Because this is something that is actually similar to something that is just in like life in general. This is going to be something called the IKEA effect. So what this is, and I'm going to briefly explain this, the idea of this is that you're biased towards the item that you personally made, right? Why do we not have a crafting system in this game? Really is what it comes down to. But on top of that, people are going to like their character and they're going to like their item a lot more if they actually put time and crafted something really cool. And I think that this would be awesome to see a crafting system in the game, because that will keep people longer in a game. It makes it more exciting, and there is really no crafting in the game. Yeah, you can craft a potion, but you literally just collect the materials and you hit craft. There's no like RNG, there's no like hype moments that someone's gonna upload over on like, you know, as a YouTube short, be like, oh my gosh guys, I'm so excited, I'm gonna craft this thing. It just really doesn't happen in Diablo 4 because the game doesn't really allow it. And I also was thinking about just in general, when I look at the itemization, like for example, if I was to take Rogue, for example, we have two different bows, right? We have the crossbow and we have the regular bow. Which one's better? Well, there's one that's just better, and it's like not even like, oh, maybe someone can use this. No, like the crossbow is just better because it has vulnerable damage and the other one has damage distance, right? So you only have really one option. And then I go to Path of Exile, I'm like, wow, look at all these different bows that exist in the game. And like, I'll be honest, not every one of these is viable. I mean, there's honestly probably only like 5-ish, maybe 6 bows. Like, pretty much comes down to, oh, okay, you get Thicket Bow, there's the Spine Bow, but there might be another, like, a few different ones that you can use for some niche stuff, right? Whether you want more crit, or more attack speed, or maybe extra something movement speed. Like there's maybe some niches, right? But like, the implicit on these, we need more than 2 bows. And at the end of the day, it's really only 1 bow because the crossbow is just superior. Why don't we have some sort of crafting system to like modify the item, convert a base of a white item that maybe rolls, or a blue item that rolls with like, maybe it has like 1 or 2 stats that we want, and then we can add another stat and see what happens. Why can't we like remove a stat on an item, or we'll just add more stats to items, right? Or just do other things to an item. Why do we not have any of these crafting systems implemented in the game? We had a really cool idea of a condition. It was just like, it was going back to like BlizzCon when we had the rune words, right? Where are all these like cool systems, like throwing in just a you know, an emerald and like that's it? And I was like, wait, we can just use the gems for crafting. Why don't we just like do that? Because in the end game, like as far as items go, like you don't really need your gems anymore. They're picking them up as like worthless because, well, you don't really need them. There's nothing to do with them, right? They're just like in the way. And I was thinking about like just the crafting in Diablo 2, where you can like make something good. You can go to the Roderick Cube, you can go throw in a Ral rune, a jewel, throw in an amulet and a gem, and like this is on the Diablo wiki. This is all the crafting that you could do in Diablo 2, and I'm like, we have guaranteed like stats that we can like try to shoot for. Maybe I really need like some sort of amulet that has guaranteed movement speed. How come I can't like kind of craft this, throw in some like, you know, some herbs, some extra like, you know, iron, and kind of have a way where like, okay, my amulet's my worst slot, I want to craft something. I think this would be cool. You know, I actually been wanting for a really long time in terms of itemization. Let us have absolutely free trade. The thing that's really bonkers is a legendary to drop. If it's something that where I don't need, I can't trade it. It makes a legendary drop pretty much worse than a rare, because at least with rares I can at least trade it with other people. And on top of that, the price to actually modify the item on a rare is significantly cheaper than a legendary item. That's why you always roll first and then you make it into a legendary. It's weird that the systems exist in this game. It's almost super backwards, because like Diablo 2 had so much more stuff. You can like basically kind of try to choose what you want to craft. Maybe sapphires give you mana or cold damage or something related to one certain colored element. Maybe the green gems, the emeralds could give you poison. I don't know, just basically some sort of form of crafting would be really awesome in the game. But hopefully they're going to be adding stuff in the future. I would love to know your thoughts on this. What do you guys think of my thoughts on some of these things as well? But yeah, rant over here. But I just think itemization in Diablo 4 is absolutely terrible, but they are at least trying to make things, you know, but like, again, when we look at what they're trying to do, like this is not enough for a unique item to make it viable. But anyways, rant over. Let me know your thoughts. If you guys enjoyed the video, drop a like on it. If you're new here, subscribe, turn the bell, and yeah, I'll update you guys when, you know, things move forward. forward with maybe the stuff that I can come forward with when we get brand new announcements of hopefully new reworked, again, uniques, because some of these uniques have been changed multiple times, and honestly, they're still going to be absolutely worthless. But anyways, I'll catch you guys in the next video. I'm out. Peace.